People always make decisions with one question. Can we afford it?
Oh.
I'm telling you right now, if you make decisions based on what you can afford, what your company can afford, what your family can afford, what your church can afford, you will never do it.
All right, welcome back, guys. Part 2 of episode 2 of season 4. You got to hear this. We started the last episode, or last part of this, with high expectations of getting it all in one episode, but the story was just too much to not tell it all. And so this one deserves a part 2, which is what you're getting now. And what we're addressing in this episode, and now the continuation of, is for church planters specifically, or people who have something in them to start. Entrepreneur, just an idea, a dream, a vision, or something. And the big takeaway that you've got to hear from this episode is that when it comes to whatever that is, like, there comes a point where you just got to get going, right?
Right.
And that was what we started to tell in part 1 of this episode. And then there was just so much context that we had to lay the groundwork for. And then we got lost a little bit in that story. And
we have to, because it's truly the story of StoryHeights Church, which is what we're memorializing, kind of volume 1, just this beautiful life that we've built and that we've lived. We've defied limitations, which is the point of this podcast.
Yeah.
And if you're just now joining, StoryHeights is in such a beautiful transition season, going from childhood to adolescence and maturity, where it's going to move beyond us.
Right.
And there's so much required from founders of anything, but if it's really God, it's always supposed to go to the next generation.
Right.
It's supposed to go, and we're not done by any means, but we have to look back at the decisions you and I made.
Right.
Because there's going to be so many people that follow us that if they don't make decisions by faith,
right,
and they don't go when God says, then they'll never live that beautiful life that we've lived.
Amen.
We don't want you to live our story. We want you to live yours.
You can't have ours.
And
it's ours.
So we tell our stories to just encourage you. Look, if God took care of us,
yeah,
He'll take care of you.
Yeah.
So in the last episode, we talked about, you have to go back and listen to that last episode where we talked about just moving to Boston with no housing and no jobs, and how we found our first apartment.
Sure.
But so let's kind of pick up where we are in this overarching phrase of just get going.
Well, we live in Watertown. And again, all of this began with what I call Wilbur Theater level aspirations.
Okay.
Right. That was what we moved here with.
If you're not from Boston, Wilbur Theater is just like beautiful, amazing, huge venue.
Like the tip of the top headlining comedians perform there.
It's imagine so many people, thousands of people going to church in the theater district in Boston.
And it was those aspirations. Crystal used the picture of a mirage, which I think is actually very beautiful. Like the deeper that go, but it was that mirage, that image, that vision that got us here. And now we've gone through all of what we've gone through that we showed you in part 1 of this, and we live in 900 square feet in Watertown, Mass.
We don't know
2 kids with no jobs. We know nobody. Our next door neighbor had about 100 deer antlers screwed into his garage. We're thinking he might be the guy that ends it all for our whole family. Like, it could be like it. I remember his name. I tried to be nice to him, but he was scary. It was hard for me. I couldn't hardly understand the man. He had the Boston, like, it was all so new, so green, so fresh. And so
our outdoor neighbors, our upper, because we lived in a two-family, upstairs neighbors.
Did you say updoors?
Our updoors.
Our updoors neighbors.
He's like Irish Catholic, non-practicing. She's Muslim, non-practicing.
Not lovely family.
Lovely family. In fact, their kid just graduated because he was between Whitaker and Campbell.
Congratulations.
Send him again. Anyways, Keon, yeah. But that, you know, we're living that life and we don't know a soul. So we're talking about get going, right? And so many people have asked us, how do you start a church? In fact, that would be like the number one question. You moved here to start a church. You wouldn't start a church because there's so much Catholic contact,
Sure.
you know? You don't just start a church.
It's been there for 200 years.
And so I think we want to kind of tell you the stories of like how God gathered people, right? So we'll walk you back a little bit. We had some friends in Baton Rouge that loved the vision and mission. I think we had been here maybe 6 months and they moved up with us and they lived in our tiny little 900 square foot apartment with their new baby. And they were very key to helping us get going. Then they met.
That's a lot of humanity in 900 square feet.
We have to give honor to these people for sure. They met a guy from London, but he had come from a church plant in New York City. His job had transferred him to Boston. They met Ian somehow. And this guy could talk to a brick wall because he has that amazing accent. And he was on fire for Jesus. And so he met a lot of people and would invite people over. And what we were doing back in the days was we would just host barbecues like every Friday night at our house. And so the money that people gave, that mailbox money we talked about, would fund these, you know, trips to Costco and you know, paper plates and all this. And we were hosting them in our shared backyard. Our neighbors were probably so sick of us. We were another, and we called them our launch team meetings, right? Yeah. But we were gathering people for a long time. We didn't even have launch team meetings. We just had these barbecues because again, we were just kind of settling in to the land, you know, so to speak, and getting here. And then we met this couple on Twitter that some guy in Florida introduced it to. So you see kind of that God working, right? Yeah. And they were in graduate school at Harvard Business School, and they kind of were on the team. They were real busy back then, but when they could, they were on the team. And then we met this, I can't remember, how did we meet the Earl family?
Also on Twitter.
Well, no, the church plant training we went to, there was a couple at our table that was planning a church, and she went to college with a couple from Maine, remember? And they were living in Boston. Yeah. So she introduced us. They didn't have a church. They had 3 little boys, our boys' age. And so that was kind of the beginnings. And then I went to a women's conference because we got to talk about the Lawn family. Went to a women's conference, and there was a drummer at that church that was from Waltham, which is the town next to Watertown. And he's moving back to Mass. I call him, wake him up. Oh my God. Like we you know, you gather anybody you can. Yeah. And then he knew the Grandeur family, remember, because he had been in a famous, I say famous, but like a local Boston band. And so she started coming, and now we have this gang of people. Yeah. And I'd say it's probably 10 people maybe. But the story we have to go back and tell is Scott and Tracy Scott. We can't tell her whole story, but she was from Dorchester, and hopefully this will encourage you. She's like local Bostonian. She had got saved at a church in Mississippi. She moved back to Boston. Yeah. She thought, no way will there ever be a church like this in Boston. She was checking the ARC website we had planted through the Association of Related Churches. Correct. She was checking their website every day. There was no ARC churches around in Boston. She's getting so discouraged. Yeah. We finally built the team up enough to where we felt like we could say we're doing this. So our dot came on the map on the ARC's website, and she checks the map every morning at like 6 a.m. before work, and she sees our dot, StoryHeights Church, launching soon or whatever. And the story is she runs through the triple decker she was living in. Her mom's in the basement, her sister's on the floor, she's out, whatever. First, second, third. Yeah. And she's running through the house. This is how she tells the story. They're here. Oh my God, they're here. Right. Talking about a church in Boston. Yeah. And she emails us if there's anything my family and I can do. Yeah. And so now you have to tell the story of the first official launch team meeting. Right. In Watertown. Well, yeah, there was no place to go. You can't put that many people in 900 square foot room, basically. We invite them all. Well, yeah, and there's nowhere to go. So we go to a park, like a local park right down the street from our house. And it's a nice day, and we're kind of sitting there, and we sit them down on a park bench, and I'm
I'm doing my very best to cast whatever vision I can cast for what this church is going to be. And I'm telling people about our heart for the one and all those things that are still so true about our church now, 15, 16 years later, and will be true about our church 15, 16 years from today as well, about how the one that is lost, the one that's not where it was originally intended to be. That lost doesn't mean worse, wrong, or wicked. It just means that it's not where God designed them to be, and we want to create a place where the lost can come and find their home in God again. I'm casting my vision in Luke chapter 15. There's the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, and I'm thinking like, oh man, they're going to be connecting with this, like I'm the prodigal, and like, oh my gosh, the church is. They're coming here and I'm the one. And I'm just thinking there's all this like momentum that's building behind this vision. And it's a Sunday, right? And again, context is important. You can park wherever you want on Sunday. It's all open. And there's a police officer that kind of slowly drives past the park in front of where the people who were there had parked their cars. And my friend Scott was there, and he sees this cop pulling down and like slowly past his car, and I am at like the denouement of this message that I'm giving, like the pinnacle moment of like, here it comes. And right before I deliver on this moment, Scott goes, oh no, man, they're not about to give me a ticket. No, I ain't going back there, bro. We're not doing that. And I'm like, like it was so deflating. And I don't say that to make fun of Scott. That's not the point of the story.
We told that was so much fondness.
Of so much fondness, of course. But the point of that story is you have to remember, I had Wilbur Theater aspirations in my mind. Yes. I saw hundreds, thousands of people gathering to hear this vision and hear this moment. And instead of the Wilbur Theater, I'm at around a park bench in Watertown, Massachusetts, talking to 6 people that are distracted by the parking meter maids, right? On a Sunday. You see what I'm saying? All that to say, you still get going.
Yeah, because
you have to get going.
And again, I respect the church planting models out there and the people telling people how to do things. And now there's like a big push, like your interest meetings have to be beautiful and staged, and you have to have perfect signage, and you need to have, charcuterie boards and, perfect music.
Grown-up Lunchables, baby.
And it all has to look good on social media. And I just think about those years, that moment, those days, those barbecue interest, we say interest meetings. They were just literally come to our backyard.
Yeah.
And you just talk. Yeah. There was none of that polish.
None of it would have been deemed Instagram worthy by today's standards.
Absolutely none of it. In fact, I look back at those pictures and you want to cringe a little bit by today's standards of professionalism.
Right.
But that bootstrap, get going, cast vision, gather people, that is the founder ideology that has to permeate everything you do.
Correct.
If you're going to get going.
And again, if your context is Galveston, Texas, right? I'm not saying it's easy to plant a church in Galveston. I'm just saying it might not be the same as here. But
and you might have to have all that polish to compete with the church next door. But in Boston,
at least at the time, and I think today,
just get going.
Yeah, and the reason why I think people struggle with this notion of if it's not perfect, it's not ready, is because we have this idea that if we're settling by getting going for something less than Wilbur Theater aspirations, that somehow we've missed God's calling, somehow God's no longer in this, right? Maybe we weren't the ones that God needed for this mission or this assignment, and you need to hear me so clearly. You've got to hear this. That is a lie straight from the enemy, my friend. That is not the reality, okay? We would have missed so much of what God used and turned into momentum building moments had we waited until we had, at the time it was 35 people on our launch team.
That was the requirement.
And had, what would it have been? 70,000 in our
bank account
launch budget and all those things. If we had waited on everything to be perfect, if we had waited on really even the basic requirements that were presented to us, it would have never happened. If we'd have followed the model that said our model is not designed for the pastor to have a second job or be bivocational, my children would have starved and they would have not gone to preschool. Like, again, get godly counsel. Look at the leverage the wisdom. The data is important, but the data doesn't determine what you do. It can't. You have to listen to the voice of God and you have to follow his timing. There are things that we've said 15 years later that we were like, we might have been a little early on that. Like
1,000%.
Like, we'll admit, we might have been a little early on this. We might have listened too much to the people who were there rather than the people who had done it. But I'm telling you, averaging all that out now over the past 15 years and what we are on the precipice of moving this church to, we wouldn't be here today if we had completely waited and exactly followed the wisdom of the model.
You know, you just said something that I think is important for people to hear.
So say it again, because I probably said it poorly.
Well, so we talked about last episode that you need to, if you're going to plant a church or start a business or whatever, you need to learn the culture. You need to envelope yourself in the area that you're at to learn the language, to learn the business, to learn the model. Like there is wisdom in doing that. And where the mistake we made was moving here and being so resource hungry because we were afraid that we did not take time to work and to learn and to envelope ourselves into the culture long enough. And so we started doing these barbecues so fast from the pressure of the church planning model that we were listening to, that you got to start gathering people as fast as you possibly can. And then the mistake that made is that when we were a year into that process and we still didn't meet the requirement of having 35 people on the launch team and $70,000, the people that were in our care that had bought into the vision, they started pushing us of, we got to have a church to go to. We need to run real services. We need to do this. But we weren't ready from that standpoint. So that is why we say we wish we would have moved here, settled for a year or two, and then started doing the barbecues when there was time. So we're not saying there's not wisdom to those things, but to rush it, you will regret. Now, we can't change anything we did, and I don't think that we should change anything we did because we made an impact in all of those people's lives.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a podcast today if we had changed it. And the podcast,
such great story.
The podcast is what it's all about.
So, all right. So so people are putting all this pressure on us, right?
Sure.
I didn't like your sarcasm right there.
About the podcast?
Yeah.
I'm really good at podcasts. That's why I love doing this.
All right. So
people love this.
Let's fast forward. So we're about a year, interest meetings, watermelon in the park, gathering people.
So that was March.
Raising money.
I mean, it wasn't a year. It was basically 9 months. We started in January.
We're doing outreaches as a team. We've got matching t-shirts, blah, blah, blah. And people are like on the team, they're like, we need a service, whatever. So we started with monthly services.
In the fall.
But let's talk through people, because we're in a season where people are about to come to our new building and it's going to be beautiful and amazing and awesome. And they're going to have no clue what it was like.
Yeah.
So why don't you walk our listeners through how you found a venue?
Yep.
Let's encourage people who don't have a venue yet, or a website, or their social media looks terrible.
Right.
What did you do to just get going?
I mean, I will just encourage you with this. It couldn't have looked more terrible than what we had. I mean, I promise you. And we thought it looked so good too.
We tried so hard.
We tried so hard. But again, Wilbur Theater aspirations come at Wilbur Theater costs. It was like $10,000 a week, whatever, an hour, who knows what it was. So we're like, oh, so maybe not the Wilbur, And so we kind of start looking in everywhere. And again, we were gonna be in Boston, and we just knew God was calling us to Boston, be in the city and like the heart of the action. And we just didn't know what we feel like we've learned since then. And so we're looking around all these neighborhoods in Boston, talking to schools, talking to theaters, talking to Arts for Humanity. You remember that place? A beautiful place. We couldn't even come close to 40. And people wouldn't have gone there. Like, it's just all the things
Well,
that
they told us no.
Well, eventually they told us no. But we were just looking all over. We had in our heads we were going to play it in the South End, which, if you know Boston at all, like, that's, I mean, it's just not a great spot for church playing.
There's like no venues.
There's no venues. There's no parking. It's not great. And so anyway, we started looking around, and then one day I took my boys who were young to see a movie in Fenway. There was a Fenway movie theater. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Wait, and let's just give context for a second. We're 3 weeks before the advertised launch date.
True. We've been telling people, why do we do that? We do that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Faith? Is that faith?
Or stupidity.
Foolish faith. Maybe it's a combination.
Yeah. But
we're really close. Like, there are people who have bought plane tickets to come to a launch service that we don't have a place to have it at. And so I'm like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go see a movie. And so I take our boys to escape into a fantasy land of some movie. I couldn't remember which one.
Toy Story, probably.
And I walked in. No, Toy Story was over by then. Anyway.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Let's not try to guess. Let's not do that to the audience. But we walk in, and I bought the tickets. Well, I don't know with what money. Like, how did we go to the movie? I don't know. But we go, and there's a sign on the wall in Fenway Movie Theater that says, "Do you need to rent a theater for an event?"
Why, yes, I do.
School event, business event, church event. Oh, yeah, I do. And so I called the number and left a voicemail because it was like Friday night. Nobody was at work. And they called me back, and they're like, "Hey, so you need to rent for, what do you need to rent it for?" I was like, "For my church. It's starting up." And they're like, "Great, we love doing that." And I was like, "Great, let's do it." And they're like, "Well, you can't do it here, but there are other movie theaters that we can look at." And so I was like, "Great, tell me where." And so I don't know why my voice keeps going high like that, but great. So we went and we looked at a movie theater in Chestnut Hill, which is right. It's basically in Newton.
Yeah, but wait. You really struggled with that because you felt God had called you to the South End, to Boston.
I was like,
and Chestnut Hill is Newton.
We're giving up on Boston.
You're settling.
We're settling again.
But then you got great advice.
But you got to get going.
You got to get going.
And settling, you're not settling by getting going. And yeah, and so
you got to reframe expectations.
Well, and I asked the guy, that's a great memory. Mr. Key. What was his first? Ralph Key. Not to be like mafia here, but like he's like the godfather of Boston church planting. Like he's doing it.
Gospel Center. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, amazing man. I don't know. I haven't looked him up in a long time. I need to.
He's a lot.
But he told me. I said, Mr. Ralph. I was like, I'm struggling with this. We need a spot. We really feel called to Boston. The only really thing that's opening up is this movie theater in Chestnut Hill. And he goes, "What are you wrestling with? That's Boston. Do it." And I was like, "But it's not." He goes, No. He's like, you don't know. You don't know. It's like that Chestnut Hill is Boston. Boston is Chestnut Hill. People don't think about it with those strict of boundaries. He's like, man, you have to open the doors somewhere. And
you just got to get going.
They just got to get going. And he didn't say it as whatever as I just said. He's a very, very calm and collected and wise man. And I was like, okay. Well, we're going to do it.
Right.
And so we got fired up about the AMC movie theater in Chestnut Hill, which, mind you, probably was built in the 70s and had been ignored since then. Like it was
so
horrible. Bad. The seating for what we were doing was terrible. The way it was set up, it wasn't like they have the new theaters today. Yeah. There was barely any place for kids. Every square
was in a hallway.
Every square foot of the carpet in that building was sticky. There was not a part of that building that wasn't sticky. It smelled, and not even like good popcorn smell. It was like
the roof leak.
1970s popcorn smell.
Gets everywhere.
It was bad, but they let us keep all our junk in their storage underneath one of the theaters, and they said yes.
And it was how much per month?
$1,150 per Sunday, which made really good sense on our $0 per year annual budget at the time. But what's the
You got to get going.
you got to get going. And so listen.
Wait. We got to. People always make decisions with one question: can we afford it?
Oh.
I'm telling you right now, if you make decisions based on what you can afford, what your company can afford, what your family can afford, what your church can afford, you will never do it.
Yeah. You got to stop thinking price and you got to start thinking cash flow. Now that's not even church planning. That's just good business.
I follow this founder, multi-million-dollar person on Instagram, and last night he posted a picture. Launch at 80%. Stop waiting to launch when everything's perfect. Great founders launch at 80%, and then they do iteration after iteration after iteration after iteration.
Right.
Back then, we were like 40%.
Barely.
50%.
Maybe.
But we had to get going. Because doing what we were doing, barbecues in our backyard, it wasn't going to sustain.
That's true.
We had to get going.
Yep. And we followed the rules as closely as we could. We had 35 people, which was the requirement, say that they would be on our launch team. They wrote their names down. There are names on that list, wherever it is, that to this day have never darkened the door of StoryHeights Church. Like, honest to God, they didn't even come. They never came. But we did. They said they would, and that's all we needed.
And we're grateful to the Association of Related Churches for believing enough in us back then to give us that loan. They gave us a loan. $35,000 that we then raised an additional $35,000. So we started with a $70,000 budget. Went real fast.
So fast. I mean,
but with signage,
$5,000 a month. Yeah.
We remember all the pipe and drape.
Good God.
All the setup. We would get there at 5:30 in the morning with us and Matt and Fabi, and remember Josh and Laura would drive down from New Hampshire.
God bless their hearts. Yeah.
We would just set up and tear down. There were so many other people in those days. Kelly and Adam.
I mean, not so many, but there were more people.
There were about 12 of us.
Tracy and Scott. Yeah.
Remember Tracy Pelletier.
Yeah.
We would just set up and tear down. Service would start at 10 a.m. and we had to be out by noon. I'm talking out because the movies were starting again.
Yeah.
So listen, we can wrap up this. Those were our early years. We did that for 2 years in that theater. 15 months at that theater, but we'll next episode, we'll continue the story from there.
Right.
But I think what sums it up in that first kind of 18 months in Boston, for us, you may decide to do it differently. There's a few things we would do differently. Is just get going.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as a testament, the Lord provided $1,150 every Sunday.
Sure did.
Sometimes you can trace where it came from. Other times you had no idea how, but he provided.
And I'll say, we know people who planted a church with $1 million, $2 million. And we know those people. And it doesn't exist today.
That church doesn't make it.
More money does not mean necessarily success.
Yeah. And what we've learned, and this is true for the church planter listening, I think it's also true for the entrepreneur or the founder in waiting or whatever, is that God always pays the bills for soul winning churches. I think you can have a variation of that says God will also always provide for businesses that are kingdom focused and kingdom building and family focused and advancing that mission, right? Like it's not just true for church planting or church planters, but when it's done in faith, when it's done by faith, when it's done for God's glory, and when it's done outside of the strength of any human person.
And you're solely dependent on God. God, if you don't move, this isn't going to happen.
He provides, guys, like he does. And so from $1,150 a Sunday to right now, is that okay to even say that?
Sure.
Like right now, between what we are renting until we move into what we own, it's $60,000 a month.
$15,000 a Sunday is what it's right now.
So like,
that's just in rent. I'm not talking all the other operational expenses.
That's just the venue, right? If we keep it on venue. And so...
And for context, This is very important.
Oh, so important.
The church is now 15 years old. Our average weekend attendance is 150 adults.
But just wait, let it sink in.
Some people
150
won't even start the church in an area like ours
until there's 100.
Until there's 100 people on a launch team.
How does that make sense? Help me make sense.
Listen to me. You might be the one that comes into a city and is so magnanimous and so charismatic that you attract everybody to you. You have all the money. You launch in Wilbur Theater. You might be the special one. But all I know is we've been here 19, and there are people that were here way before us, like Ralph Key.
Been here 15.
50 years.
50.
And it doesn't happen that way. And that doesn't mean we failed.
You're not settling.
You're not settling. You're not a failure. If you are a church planner right now and you've got 10 people on your team, you are not a failure. You are in a stage of development that matters, and you just have to keep going through that. You've got to get going and keep going.
That's right.
Don't stop. And if you are that one, well, then tell us the secret.
Yeah.
But
I want to give you a job, like if you are the one.
All I know is we're not special, but we are called to be faithful. And so whatever faithful looks like for you, keep going. Thanks for joining us on this episode of You've Got to Hear This. We hope you got something out of it as we time to memorialize and to capture the story of StoryHeights Church and everything that God has done in our life, this amazing life that we built and we loved, and we want that for you as well. So whether you are starting a business, growing a family, ready to take that next step, or you're like us, thinking about planning a church or in the middle of that journey, we hope that you hear us say, you've got this, and God's got you, and you will be victorious in every part of your life. Join us next episode. We're going to talk to you about what it feels like to have so many people coming and going, and how to have great boundaries that protect the vision and the mission in your heart, no matter if people are with you for a lifetime or for a day. We'll see you then.